Hey guys, this is Nick, and this is your Linux, open source and privacy news fix for the end of June 2021. This time we have Brave launching their public search engine in beta, Ubuntu making design changes, PopOS 21.04 releasing, and tons of improvements for Linux gaming, mainly with Nvidia drivers. Let's take a look right after I tell you everything about today's sponsor, Alma Linux. Alma Linux is an open-source enterprise Linux distribution built as an alternative to CentOS. It's governed by a non-profit organization, and they provide a complete one-to-one binary compatibility with pre-stream CentOS and with Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Alma Linux is backed by AWS, ARM, cPanel, and a lot of other vendors, and it has seen its first stable release in March 2021. They already hit 20,000 downloads, and they support Secure Boot, OpenSCAP, or Red Hat Errata, and they have cloud images available for Vagrant and Docker. Oh, and also you can migrate from CentOS to Alma Linux in just one script and without rebooting. If you're looking for an alternative to CentOS, you'll probably want to take a look at the link in the description. Now let's begin with the Linux news. And users who have been postponing their move to GNOME 40 will probably be happy to learn that -2 panel is now functional on the latest GNOME version. It comes complete with IntelliHide, transparency, panel color, and window previews on icon hover in the taskbar. It seems to integrate well with the new workspaces layout, and it's already available from GNOME extensions. Now I'm pretty sure that this means that most distros that held up on GNOME 40 will be able to complete their move to it for their next release. Now speaking of replacing CentOS, Rocky Linux also had its first public stable release out. It's a rebuild of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and it's been created by Gregory Kortzer, CentOS's co-founder. Rocky Linux 8.4, based on Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8.4, already saw more than 10,000 downloads, so it seems to prove popular with users. Rocky Linux is a community-ran distro, but for people who want commercial support, Kortzer founded Control IQ, a startup that will provide just that. It's available on AWS and Google Cloud for ARM64 and x86 architectures. Now, version 5.13 of the Linux kernel has also been released. The main headline feature is probably the support for Apple M1 SoCs, even though the GPU isn't fully operational yet, especially in the accelerated graphics department, so it's not a be-all end-all solution for your M1 Mac yet. AMD FreeSync HDMI is also now supported, and the Landlock security module is now merged and allows for unprivileged application sandboxing, which should give a big boost to general Linux security. Initial support for Intel's Alder Lake S graphics is also in, as well as a new Intel CPU cooling driver. As always, you should wait for your distro to package it before you jump on it. There now seems to be a Debian User Repository, the Debian-based alternative to the Arch User Repository, or AUR. It's still very early on, so it's not that well stocked yet, but it's based on the work of Hunter Wittenborn, which created the MakeDeb script that allows users to create Debian packages from Arch package builds, and also on the npm package manager. We'll have to see if it takes off and if it is even remotely secure, because as with all user-created install packages, validation is difficult and it could contain insecure stuff. Seems like Ubuntu will make changes to their Yaru theme again, basically removing the mixed option that uses black header bars and white controls. It seems like maintaining it is too much of a burden on the team, and that it's also incompatible with how GTK4 does things, so they'll just be shipping the full white and the fully dark variants. They should also replace the purple or aubergine accents, but we don't really know yet what color they'll use instead. On that redesign note, it also looks like Ubuntu might change its official logo soon, after 11 years of using the current white on orange circle of friends. It's not official yet, so let's not get carried away, but I'm always up for a nice rebranding. PopOS 21.04 was released right before the end of their June deadline. Now, I kinda jumped the shark on my review video, which I couldn't wait for anymore due to personal time constraints, and as such, a few things I pointed out in the video have been fixed, like the ability to search for files using the launcher, and the option to change the dock layout right after startup. Still, if you want to see what Cosmic, their GNOME implementation, looks like, you can check out the video in the card up top. The workflow of using that desktop hasn't changed since I made the video. It splits the activities view in a workspace view and an applications view, and it adds a launcher that will pop up when pressing the super key, as well as a dock out of the box. All the nice auto-tiling features are also present there, and it's based on Ubuntu 21.04, so it should have up-to-date repos, drivers, and kernels. Now onto some gaming news, and Wine 6.11 was released. It adds theming support in all built-in programs of Wine, so maybe we can finally have Windows apps looking half decent on Linux. Maybe. It also fixes 33 bugs for various games such as Hogs of War, the Roblox client, Two Worlds Epic Edition, Amnesia Rebirth, StarCraft 2, and multiple games using the MUSL library like Kingdom Come Deliverance or Just Cause 4. AMD dropped their answer to Nvidia's DLSS technology with Fidelity FX. This is a solution that allows to output high-resolution frames based on low-resolution images. Basically, it's all algorithms that will sharpen the edges of low-res assets, making them look like high-res ones at a way lower performance impact. Fidelity FX's code will be open for developers to use in mid-July, and it seems to be working on Linux titles, whether native or through Proton, and even for Nvidia GPUs. This kind of technology is what will allow us to game at higher resolutions without having to refinance our houses to buy a new GPU, so it's super exciting to see. Speaking of super sampling technology, Nvidia dropped their new driver, version 470.42.01, which adds support for DLSS through Wine and Proton, as soon as they will have been updated to take advantage of that new driver. It only works for games using Vulkan, but DLSS through DirectX should arrive this fall. VR users also get asynchronous reprojection, which will smooth out the frame rate when moving your head and make it look less choppy. Finally, Wayland users get initial support for OpenGL and Vulkan hardware accelerated rendering, but all the underlying libraries need an update as well, so it might not work just yet, unless you live on the bleeding edge. There are still a lot of limitations that mean that Nvidia on Wayland still isn't fully usable, but it's getting there. Proton 6.3-5 was also released, improving video rendering for Deep Rock Galactic, Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, Resident Evil 2 and 3, the remakes, not the originals, or Sonic Team Racing. A lot of new titles should also be fully playable out of the box now, like Civilization 6, Far Cry, Dorf Romantic, or Secret of Mana. Hades and other Unity titles also have improved controller support, and Cyberpunk 2077 got some fixes. Of course, it also pulls in the latest DXVK, VKD3D, and other libraries. Proton Experimental also saw the necessary updates to support the aforementioned Nvidia DLSS. Now onto hardware, and Slimbook launched their whole new Slimbook Executive. It's the equivalent to Tuxedo's InfinityBook Pro 14 and packs a 3K panel with a 90Hz refresh rate, the latest 11th gen Intel CPUs with Xe graphics, some good I/O including an SD card reader, and up to 12 hours of battery life. They went for the silver chassis compared to Tuxedo's preferred black, and you can spec it out up to 64GB of RAM and 4TB of SSD storage. It starts at €1,200 as a €100 discount seems to be automatically applied at the time I'm making this video. I'll probably receive one to try out. Tuxedo on the other hand released their new laptop, the Tuxedo Stellaris 15. This high-end laptop uses the same chassis and specs as the Slimbook Titan I reviewed. I left a link to the video I made about it in the card up top. It can use up to a Ryzen 9 5900HX and an RTX 3080 with a 3K panel that has a 165Hz refresh rate, an optomechanical keyboard, and a 93 Wh battery that will keep it running for about 6 hours according to my own testing. It's a very beefy device on the higher end of the spectrum, and I'll probably still review the Tuxedo iteration of it just to see what they did differently. Now on the privacy side of things, Facebook bought Oculus a while ago, and now they intend to make a profit out of it by adding ads in your Oculus Quest apps. Facebook already used some data from Oculus users to target ads outside of the platform, but now they're going to be displaying them inside your VR experiences as well, starting with the game Blast On. They plan to expand that to other apps depending on user feedback, and these ads will use your data from Facebook as well, to tailor them to everything you viewed, used, liked, saved, or whatever else you can do on Facebook. I can safely say that this is a disgusting practice, since ads in VR are going to be all the more in your face than regular web ads, and there doesn't seem to be ad blockers just yet for this platform. And I know my videos have ads too, but I won't complain if you use AdBlock. Facebook doesn't seem to give you that option. The European Union continues its campaign against Google and is now initiating a probe into Google's ad practices. They'll focus on their relationship to advertisers, publishers, intermediaries, and rivals, and see if this market is competitive enough to their liking. Now, Google had already been fined more than $9 billion in the past 3 years for anti-competitive practices in online shopping and digital advertising. And they also got an additional $5 billion fine for abusing their position in the Android market. I'm pretty certain that the EU will find fault in how Google is entrenched in the advertising space as well, but we'll have to wait and see. Brave officially launched its Brave search engine in beta for all users of the Brave browser or otherwise. They say it's private, without any tracking from your searches or your clicks, and they don't collect any data. It's a complete independent index based on the Tailcat search engine, and they don't use Bing or Google results that they would have anonymized. Results are actually refined using anonymous community contributions. Basically, it might just well be the most private independent search engine there is. And I've been using it for a few days now. I can say it rarely let me down in general web searches, but there will be a dedicated video on the channel in July. Okay, now I can't conclude this video without thanking Slimbook for becoming a partner of the channel. Now, these guys offer computers pre-installed with Linux, they ship virtually anywhere in the world, even though they are based in Spain, and they have a lot of choices in terms of distros and keyboard layouts. Now, personally, I've been using their desktop, the Slimbook Chimera, as well as their mechanical membrane keyboard, the Slimbook RGB keyboard, and I just replaced my MateBook 13 with their Slimbook Pro X14, and that was all even before they decided to become a partner of the channel. So if you're looking for hardware pre-installed with Linux, from a NUC to a monster gaming laptop, check out the link in the description below. And that concludes it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't hesitate to like or dislike if you didn't. You can also subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to get more videos like this one. You can watch all my videos on Odyssey if you don't like YouTube. And if you want to help me make a living out of YouTube, you can also join my Patreon subscribers and YouTube members and get access to a weekly patroncast and the right to vote on the next topics I'll cover. Now, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!